Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashto Tarasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashto Tarasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Go Gopinath Shyamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dhamma Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dhamma Ki Jai Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Sankirtan Jagna Ki Jai, Brihamadanga Chanson and the book distribution Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada's heart to BBT Ki Jai, going home back to Godhead Ki Jai, their transcendental lordships, Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 9, chapters entitled The Passing Away of Bhīṣmadeva. Today we're on text 29. Dharmam pravadatas tasya kālaḥ pratyupasthitaḥ yoginaś chanda-mṛtyor vāñchitas tūttarāyaṇaḥ dharmam pravadatas tasya kālaḥ pratyupasthitaḥ yoginaś chanda-mṛtyor vāñchitas tūttarāyaṇaḥ. Please chant. Vaishnavis. Dharmam, occupational duties. Pravadatas, while describing. Tasya, his. Sha, that. Kālaḥ, time. Pratyupasthitaḥ, exactly appeared. Ya, that is. Yoginaś, for the mystics. Chanda-mṛtyor, of one who dies according to one's own selection of time. Vāñchitas is desired by. To, but. Uttarāyaṇaḥ, the period when the sun runs on the northern horizon. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. While Bhīṣmadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Please repeat. While Bhīṣmadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Purport. The perfect yogis or mystics can leave the material body at their own sweet will at a suitable time and go to a suitable planet desired by them. In the Bhagavad-gītā 8.24, it is said that self-realized souls who have exactly identified themselves with the interest of the Supreme Lord can generally leave the body during the time of the fire god's effulgence and when the sun is in the northern horizon, and thus achieve the transcendental sky. In the Vedas, these times are considered auspicious for quitting the body, and they are taken advantage of by the expert mystics who have perfected the system. Perfection of yoga means attainment of such super mental states as to be able to leave the material body as desired. Yogis can also reach any planet within no time without a material vehicle. The yogis can reach the highest planetary system within a very short time, and this is impossible for the materialists. Even attempting to reach the highest planet will take millions of years at a speed of millions of miles per hour. This is a different science, and Bhīṣmadeva knew well how to utilize it. He was just waiting for the suitable moment to quit his material body, and the golden opportunity arrived when he was instructing his noble grandsons, the Pandavas. He thus prepared himself to quit his body before the exalted Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, the pious Pandavas, and the great sages headed by Bhagavān Vyāsa, etc., all great souls. Dharmam pravadatas tasya sa kālaḥ pratyupasthitaḥ. Yoginaś chanda-mṛtyor vāñchitas tūttarāyaṇaḥ. While Bhīṣmadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. Okay, thought you were going to punch me in the nose. Okay, this period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Om Gyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unlitam Gena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So there's an interesting this uttarāyaṇaḥ, or I did a lot of searching for this, but I finally found out, but it's the equivalent of Makara Sankranti, which took place on January 13th this year. It's the beginning of, that's when the sun comes into the northern hemisphere. And then it continues. I think now it's going down into the southern hemisphere because we passed that June 13th date. So now the days will start getting shorter. There'll be less light. So this is actually a very auspicious time. Now we're, within our movement, we're a bit time conscious. We have the Brahma Muhurta period, where if we perform devotional activities, we get more benefit. And, we have our Ekadasis. The Vanashram system is all kind of designed around the time factor. The Panchas Urdvam Vanam Vrajet, the age of 50, one should go to the forest. I'm a little late on that, but I'm hoping to get there. Someone got the joke. At least Dr. Moses was smiling. Okay. So this is the time that Bhīṣmadeva left. Now the description in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā, this is basically for the Ashtanga Yogīs, but we can take advantage of that. Also the Brahma Muhurta, that's in the Vedas. The Makara Sankranti, it's in the Vedic. That whole tradition. So. Also, Panchas Urdvam Vanam Vrajet, the age of 50, go to the forest. And then, so time is an element for devotees. This also, believe it or not, Makara Sankranti is the time that Ganga Mata descended onto this planet. This is when the Ganga Sagara Mela takes place, down where the Ganga merges into the ocean. I take Ganga Snan every day, so it's like such a blessing that we have. And another big event, this is the biggest event that took place on Uttarāyaṇaḥ, and that's that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas on that day. I mean, he was the most renounced, Supreme Personality of Godhead. He didn't have any need to renounce, but Aishvaryasha, Samagrasha, Viryasha, Yashasha, Shriya, Jnana Vairagya Yoschaiva, Shanam Bhaga Atingana. So he had all 6 opulences in full wealth, full strength, full beauty, knowledge, renunciation, fame. During that period, people were criticizing him. So he strategized that better that I take sannyas, and then naturally that ashram garners respect. As a result of that, we're all sitting here today because Lord Chaitanya spread Krishna consciousness worldwide. We got the mercy. I wouldn't be here, none of us would be here. So that's the mercy of Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his potency and his intelligence for spreading Krishna consciousness. Okay, so today we have a super important topic. Death. Do any of you that are listening today, either on the internet or here live, think about that you're going to be dying pretty soon? Please raise your hand if this enters your mind from time to time. Okay, you're an older guy. Okay, so when the body starts falling apart, it's a little easier to remember that. When you're young, I'm going to live forever. But there was an interesting question. This is from Mahabharata that Yamaraj asked of Yudhisthira. Anybody know what the question is? If you know, can we make this interactive? Maybe that's too awkward. We have to hand the microphone around. And, anybody know what that question is that Maharaj or that Yamaraj asked of Maharaj Yudhisthira? Atmatafa knows. Okay, you got the mic, so you got the mic for the Russians anyway. Okay, so what is it? But you got the cheat sheet. You got my notes. Okay, all right. So you're not getting any burfy after class. Okay, so the most amazing thing. This was Maharaj Yudhisthira's response. Ahani ahani bhutani kachanti ya yamalayam shesha stavaram michanti kimascha ya ataparam. Every day, hundreds and thousands, actually millions of living entities are going to the kingdom of death. But those who are remaining are making arrangement for a permanent situation. Does it ring any bells? Do any of you think like this, maybe? Matafa, I don't believe it. Okay, so it's a common affair. You know, we came into this material. I'm sorry, I'm going to go outside the notes, so you have to rough it. We came into this material world. We misused our free will. Icha dvesha samutvaina dvandvo mohena bharata sarva bhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. The bewildered living entity comes into this material world overwhelmed by the dualities of desire and hate. This is the driving force in the material world. He's desiring, guess what he's desiring to be? He's desiring to be the center of the universe. Anybody ever think like that here? Does the ego ever twist your consciousness around so you think you're the center of the universe? And okay, so who is the center of the universe? Krishna. And so we don't like him so much. This is the materially conditioned consciousness. Because I'm the center of the universe. Who the heck are you? Get out of my way. This is kind of how the materially conditioned soul thinks. One time, I was distributing books in a Smoky Mountain National Park. And this was on the border of Tennessee and North Carolina in America. Amazing place to distribute books. We're 1 mile high and all these beautiful mountains around. And I had a 10-gallon cowboy hat. Okay, it's a big white cowboy hat. They call it a 10-gallon hat. In India, you might not know what a 10-gallon hat is, but it's big. And I would just, welcome to the Smoky Mountains, sir. Where are you coming in from? And, we do huge there. My friend Nirguna Prabhu, who I'm going to speak about later on in the class, we distributed there, I think we were there for about 7 or 8 years. It was just amazing. And one time, a Christian minister who probably weighed about 250 pounds, he came up and started beating on me, We had to call the park rangers on the guy and get him arrested. Anyway. But the point is that the conditioned soul is in this position of thinking he's wanting to be the center of the universe, and any envious or even hateful of anything that gets in his way. That area of America is the Bible Belt, and these are very fundamentalist Christians. But we still distributed a lot of books. I had a few rough experiences. Just about 35 miles from where we were distributing was the Knoxville. There used to be a Knoxville, Tennessee temple, and some members of the Ku Klux Klan. These are extreme right-wing people. Killed 2 devotees and burned the building down that was in. So very heavy area, but also incredibly powerful for book distribution. Now it's illegal. I tried to do it when I went back to America like 3 or 4 years ago, but they don't allow it anymore there. So, getting back on track here. So, ahani bhutani. So everyone is, they're not thinking. Even though so many people are dying all around us, so many living entities. And we're thinking, it's not going to happen to me. I mean, what a foolish consideration. So, in the material world, we celebrate birthdays. It's a glorious event. Happy birthday to you. But we don't sing happy death day to you. But actually, with the passing of Bhīṣmadeva, it was a very blissful event. Incredible. No one was sad. They were glad to see Grandfather Bhīṣmadeva going back to Godhead. And it can be that way for us. I mean, it's not an easy transition. We'll talk more about that. So Lord Bhīṣmadeva, he had a really amazing facility that he could choose the time of his death. Icha mrityu. This was an empowerment that he got from King Shantanu, his father, because he took the vow. I'm not going to go into all the details because the clock is ticking, but he did a big favor for his father, so his father gave him the benediction that he could choose the time of his death, and it's exactly what this is taking place today. He chose, there was a presence of Lord Krishna, which is, that's the ultimate auspicity. The Pandavas, who he just took care of them in these incredibly challenging circumstances that they were placed in by Duryodhana and the Kauravas. And, he just did an amazing, just amazing his departure, because even Lord Krishna couldn't convince Yudhisthira to drop his lamentation over the killing of 640 million people so that he could ascend to the throne. This was his consciousness. He was deeply afflicted, but ultimately the arrangement of the Lord. So this auspicious event, this happy death day, could take place. One of Srila Prabhupada's favorite verses, he quotes it in many, many purports, and devotees that were his servants or secretaries noticed that he would often sing these during his sing this shloka during his daily activities, and even when he was alone. He just loved it. And the first record album that Prabhupada published, he also sang, this is one of the songs that he sung. Forgive my Sanskrit pronunciation and meter, but I'm going to try on this. Krishna tvadiya parapankaja pancharantam adyaiva me vashatu manasa rajahamsa prana prayayana samaye kalpavita vatapita Kanta varodana vedho smaranam kutaste. This is from the Mukunda Mala Stotra. And Prabhupada, he started translating it before he came to America, and he only did the first 6 slokas. And then he asked his disciples to continue the translation. And Satsvarup Maharaj and Gopi Prandan continued with this. Satsvarup Maharaj compiled the purports. So here's the translation. O Lord Krishna, at this moment, let the royal swan of my mind enter the tangled stems of the lotus of your feet. How will it be possible for me to remember you at the time of death, when my throat will be choked up with mucus, bile, and air? So this is an analogy. Apparently, I haven't observed it myself, but apparently swans, when they're swimming in a lotus pond, they love to stick their beaks into lotus flowers. So this analogy basically means that King Kurukshetra, who's speaking this, would like to leave his body now, when he's in, strong mental and physical health, when he has a meditative mood. It usually doesn't work that way. I know one example in this lifetime of someone who had the capacity to choose the time of his death. There's an Ayurvedic doctor in Vrindavan, his name is Leeladhar Gupta, and he taught some Ayurvedic courses in the beginning years of the Mayapur Institute. And I went to his facility. It's between Vrindavan and Mathura, and did some panchakarma treatment. A really sweet person. His grandfather, he comes in a long lineage of Ayurvedic doctors. His father was an Ayurvedic doctor, his grandfather was an Ayurvedic doctor, and his grandfather was in his, I think he was late 70s, early 80s. And he called all the family members together and said, I'm leaving today. There wasn't any chronic illness, no acute disease. He just told everyone he was going to leave. And so he did some skaras or whatever, and the family was doing different pujas, and he left, like 12 hours after he announced. I don't know all the details, whether it was Makara Sankranti or not, but anyway, he had the capacity to know when he was going to be leaving, and he actually had the free will to do that. And I don't know his history in terms of like austerities or Ashtanga yoga, but anyway, just wanted to keep everybody awake with that little story. So now, Prabhupada explains this verse in the purport to the second verse of the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā. Goes into a lengthy explanation. And I'm going to take the liberty to read this. And so please stay attentive, because you're all going to die. All right? Believe me, it's not a joke. There was, I was listening to a class recently that Pradananda Swami was giving at the Bhaktivedanta Manor. And he was telling a story about how one devotee that he knows went to a doctor, and the doctor looked at him after examining him. He looked very, very gloomy, and he said, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you're going to die soon. And the devotee said to him, you're going to die soon too. So it's on the agenda, it's coming up. It may be in the future, maybe a little bit longer for some of you. I had the good fortune, there was a devotee. There is a devotee, I should say. He's Prabhupada disciple. He's one of the first astrologers in the movement. I'm not a big fan of astrology, but I take it and leave it here and there. I don't let it dictate my life. But he predicted the day when I would get married. The day I would meet my wife. This was like 8 months beforehand. Pretty remarkable. And he also predicted when I would step down from a leadership position, as the director of the Mayapur Institute. This was like 20 years before the fact, something like that. And he also predicted when I'd most likely leave my body. Okay? So Maharaj Parikshit, he had 7 days. I got 7 years. All right? So, but still, there's like a strong impetus. There's a really nice quote in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, text 9. And this is the items of knowledge. Janmastami jara vyadi dukkha doshana darshana. So this is an item of knowledge. The perception of the evil. Interesting translation Prabhupada gives. Of birth, death, disease, and old age. And then in the purport, Prabhupada, I'm not exactly sure how he words it, but unless one has a pessimistic view of materialistic life, that's how he words it. And because of the impetuses, unless one has a pessimistic view of material life, because of the stresses of birth, death, disease, and old age, because of the distresses of birth, death, disease, and old age, there's no impetus for spiritual advancement. So in other words, it's a good kick from the backside. Wake up, or a slap in the face. Wake up, get serious about your spiritual life. You don't have much time left. I mean, looking back at the last 72 years, it moves so quickly. I mean, back to Moses, don't think, that it's going to be like so fast when you get to be 72. Okay, you'll see. Just poof. And when you compare it with eternality, it's a flash. And and Western psychologists have determined that the perception of a person as he ages, that the time factor moves even quicker. Okay, so what to do? So let me read this real quickly from the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, 2nd verse. Now the word prayana kālaḥ in this Bhagavad-gītā verse is very significant, because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. This is has the same meaning as prayana samaye. Okay, so whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Arjuna is very anxious to know of those who are constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness. What should their position be at that final moment? At the time of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted and the mind is not in a proper condition. Thus disturbed by the bodily situation, one may not be able to remember the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Kulakshekar, a great devotee, prays, "My dear Lord, just now I am quite healthy, and it's better that I die immediately so that the swan of my mind can seek entrance at the stem of your lotus feet." The metaphor is used because the swan, a bird of the water, takes pleasure in digging into the lotus flowers. Its sporting proclivity is to enter the lotus flower. The metaphor is used because the swan, a bird of the... Oh, I read that. Okay. Maharaj Kulakshekar says to the Lord, "Now my mind is undisturbed and I'm quite healthy. If I die immediately, thinking of your lotus feet, then I'm sure that my performance of your devotional service will become perfect. But if I have to wait for my natural death..." I'm looking around the room, it looks like a couple devotees may have died, or either that or they fell asleep. I'm not sure. Wake up, sleeping souls. Okay. But if I have to wait for my natural death, then I do not know what will happen. Because at that time, the bodily functions will be disrupted, my throat will be choked up, and I do not know whether I shall be able to chant your name. Better let me die immediately. Amazingly enough, Prabhupada, this was one of his favorite verses. I've added it to my list of verses to be memorized. It takes longer now with the older brain, but I still try pretty hard. Later in this 8th chapter, Krishna says that the exact moment of death is very, very crucial. Ante kale chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram yapayati sa madbhavam yati nastyatra samshaya. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there's no doubt. That's Gita 8.4. And then this goes on in 8.5, the same kind of understanding. Oops, excuse me. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So Prabhupada, in those purport, he repeatedly recommends that to remember Krishna at the time of death, recommends the chanting of Hare Krishna. We know that. Okay, so there's practical difficulties that this verse brings up in remembering Krishna at the time of death. Although it's crucial to remember him, that time produces the greatest disruption of one's physical and mental functions. Last night I had a real nasty, not that bad. I had a heavy WhatsApp message, and so then guess what? I woke up at like 1:45 and I couldn't go back to sleep. Okay, you're lucky that I'm not falling asleep on the Vyasa-san. I think there's others that are doing it on my behalf, so I appreciate that. It's like carrying the burden for me. Prabhupada says in a second chance, the story of a near-death experience, that at death, the living entity can no longer bear to remain in his present body. The pain is so acute. So it's like, exit stage left. It's time to get out of here. Has anybody been present when someone's left their body? Raise your hand if you have. Atmatafa, you? Yeah. I'm actually thinking of leaving my body at the end of the class, so you might see another. Those that haven't witnessed it, you can watch me. This verse is having such an impact on me. Okay, so there's an obvious paradox. The time of death is when we should have the most meditative consciousness, right? That's when we should be the most Krishna conscious. But it's the time when we're the most disturbed. So what to do? Our acharyas have assured us that dependent upon the sincerity with which we practice Krishna consciousness throughout our lives, then that will facilitate us remembering Krishna at the end. So what can we do to get ready for that happy death day? Think about what you might want to put as your highest priorities. I mean, we can just in a real kind of a big brushstroke, maybe we should eliminate activities that stimulate us to not remember Krishna. I mean, sometimes now we live in the, this is Kali Yuga. Another name for it is smartphone yuga. I mean, talk about distractions. Oh my God. I mean, it can be, the Yukta Vairagya principle can be there and it can be utilized in Krishna's service. Atmatafa is translating, he's using his smartphone. I got my tablet here, it's giving me a brain. But what we need to focus. One of the 9 reliable symptoms of the stage of bhava. Anybody here at the stage of bhava yet? Please raise your hand. Atmatafa ki jai. I knew you were there. Okay, so the first reliable symptom is avyarta kalatvam. That means one should be very careful not to waste a second of his valuable lifetime. And someone on the stage of bhava, like Atmatafa, he does not waste a second of his valuable lifetime. Like Radhesham, he's a TP, very learned Vaishnava, very sincere soul. He's a TP down in Pune, or Pune, depending upon where you are and where you're from and how you pronounce it. But he says this can be practiced on the sadhana bhakti platform. So be very time conscious. Don't space out. Keep focused. If you haven't got service, think, what can I do to do service? What can I do to increase my service? How can I chant better rounds? Actually, that's really probably the most important consideration. We should mold our lives in such a way to optimize the chanting of our japa. Prabhupada says in, oh God, I'm sorry, Atmatava, you've heard me say this before though, so it'll be easy for you. Smartavya saratam vishnor vishmartavyo najatuchit sarve vidhi nasheda ashur etayor eva kinkara. Madhya 22, don't know the sloka number, sorry Atmatava. When I apologize to you, do you translate it? No. When I make fun of you, do you That's the best part, because everyone will be chuckling then, keep them awake. So one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. And all the other rules and regulations coming from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra should be servants of these two principles. They're actually servants of these two principles. And Prabhupada in the Purport says, if we want to remember Krishna, then we chant Hare Krishna. And then he says, okay, everyone awake? Listen to this very, very, very carefully. Okay. Of all the instructions of the spiritual master, the chanting of 16 rounds is the most essential. Okay? Got it? Highest level of priority in our lives. We should mold our whole life to optimize our chanting. Can you do that? Did anybody start thinking about how you do it? You don't have a big feast at 9 o'clock at night. That's one thing you can do. Avoid that. See, can't even wake up in the morning. And, one really significant point. I've said this, probably, those of you who've heard my classes before, you probably heard me say this before. But I believe it was in 1975, Srila Prabhupada visited the Atlanta Temple. And all the book distributors in North America converged on the Atlanta Temple because they were promised to have his private darshan. All the book distributors together would have Prabhupada's darshan. And there's one very special devotee, he's a good friend of mine. He's the longest tenured temple president in U.S., or in ISKCON history. His name is Svavas. He's been the temple president in LA since 1987. And at that time, when in 1975, he was a full-time book distributor. And he asked Srila Prabhupada a question. Srila Prabhupada, how can we increase our desire to distribute your books? And then Srila Prabhupada paused. He looked up at the ceiling. He was in a meditative state of consciousness. He just kept looking at the ceiling, and then he said, if you really want to increase book distribution, if you really want to increase book distribution, then you will chant all of your rounds without stopping. Got it? So how was that implemented by the book distributors in America? When I joined in 1977, all the book distributors in the New York Temple, both male and female, had to be up at 2 a.m. in the morning. And then they'd easily get all their rounds and even get some reading in before darshanartik. And then they'd hit the road, get out there and distribute books and do huge. That became the culture. Guess what? Do you know what time Savas gets up in the morning now? Anybody have a guess? Guess. Come on. 2 o'clock. That's a good... You guys are so sharp. So he's been doing it all these years, and he's extremely successful. He's the BBT trustee for North America. He comes to the Mayapur festival every year except when the COVID epidemic is prevalent. And, a fired up devotee. So that's, there's Panchanga Bhakti, the 5 most important angas of Bhakti. Chanting Hare Krishna, Prabhupada has given us this as the highest priority one. Then, of course, we've got living in the Dham. Living in the Dham doesn't necessarily be living in Mayapur, but it's not a bad place to live. I lived here 18 years before, and I'm back again. That's so powerful. The purificatory process is accelerated multifold. But we can create a dham in our home. There are dhams all over the world with the ISKCON temples. We can have a dham in our heart. Once Radhanath Swami was asked, because there were such crowds at the Sunday feast at the Chopati temple. So one devotee, Maharaj gave the Sunday feast presentation and asked Maharaj, because they'd have like a set downstairs, set of devotees downstairs, and they'd be looking at widescreen TV, and there'd be people out in the hallway, and no one was fitting into the temple. And so one devotee asked Maharaj at the end of his class, Radhanath Swami, have you ever considered building a temple for all the devotees? And guess what Maharaj's response was? I'm trying to build a temple in each of the devotees' hearts. You got it? So in other words, we can have this whole culture of just total meditation upon Śrī Kṛṣṇa within our heart. So the Panchanga Bhakti is the way to get that. Another aspect of it is the deity worship. Another aspect of it is the service to the devotees. I love serving Atma-tattva. I don't do a very good job at it, but I love doing it. One of the best ways I serve him is to crack all these jokes and get him laughing. Okay, so then let's see. We got Panchanga Bhakti. Let's see, and Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam. Studying Bhagavatam. Right? Did I cover all 5? I think so. So if we focus on these, but in particular, the holy name. And we can't chant the holy name externally. What does that mean? Okay, I was told I'm supposed to chant 16 rounds, so I'm doing it, and I'm looking at my clock, and I'm wondering when the heck could I get this done and do it as quick as I can so I can get on with my life. But it's from the heart. How many of you would like to go out of your minds right now? Amitava, he wants to go crazy. We got a psychiatric hospital right down the street here waiting for you. Don't worry. Okay, so go out of your mind and go into your heart. That's the key. Go into your heart. And so you chant with feeling. Prabhupada described this as like the genuine cry of a child for his mother. Anybody have any kids here? Amitava does. And when that baby cries, and it's right from the heart, right? And she's not thinking about it, she does it from the heart. So, and there's different meanings that the acharyas give on the Hare Krishna mantra. Krishna, please empower me. Krishna, please, I've forgotten you for so long, so many births. Please, let me come back to you. With deep emotion, deep feeling, and then you don't think about it. Then the pramada, the inattention, just doesn't crash into your consciousness continually. Okay, we got just a few minutes left, so I'm going to just briefly describe one of my best friends and his happy death day. I was recently doing a Maha cleanup in my office space, and I came back across an old photograph of my Sankirtan partner, Nirguna. And in this photograph, there was two devotees that were massaging his feet and legs. He was on a hospital bed, and he had his hands gripping this thing that could allow him to raise himself. And you could see just by how skinny his forearms were. He was down to about 22 kgs. He had spindle cell sarcoma, which is a form of cancer that can't be treated with chemo or radiation. And it enveloped his aorta, his bronchial tubes, and his esophagus. So he couldn't swallow. Towards the end, he couldn't swallow anything. And at one point, about 6 weeks before he left, the cancer ate into his spinal column and became paralyzed from the waist down. And with that paralysis came intense pain that it could only be reduced by vigorous massage of his feet and legs. So I organized 34 devotees to massage his feet and legs 24/7. Even during his sleep, if the massage wasn't going on, he would be in so much pain he'd wake up and it'd take 3 or 4 hours for the pain to subside. The medical profession suggested he take barbiturates, painkillers, but not going there. He wanted to be fully conscious. He chanted 16 rounds right up to the very last day of his departure. I hit the mic's hitting me back, I guess. So, but he had utsaha nishchaya daryat. He had incredible enthusiasm, incredible confidence of Krishna being his protector, and he just surrendered completely to pushing on Prabhupada's mission. And he was patient. He was patient with the circumstances that inevitably we all have to be patient with. His wife of 25 years left him, 2 years before he left his body, and just heavy stuff. Then the whole cancer thing came, but he left his body in the first Mayapur Institute classroom. We had BBT photographs on the ceiling of all of Krishna's pastimes, in particular Giriraj lifting Govardhan Hill, because that was the first BBT picture that he saw of Krishna lifting Govardhan. So there's amazing miracles that took place. There's 5 of them, but I'm not going to tell them now because Padmapad, he's going to hit me over the head with the danda that he doesn't have yet, but he'll have pretty soon if I don't stop at 9. And I got 2 minutes to go. Are there any questions or comments? Are there any chastisements? Ekachakra, you got a question? Oh, okay, he's giving it to you, handing the baton. Okay. Okay, we got to get the mic here so the English speakers can hear.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the nice class. Ekachakra Prabhu is asking, what is the main principle to overcome nama aparadha?
Well, the root cause of all the aparads is pramada, or inattention. So, what I would say is your best bet, Ekachakra Prabhu, and this, I'll spread the word to everybody, those that are online and those that are present, that every day you read one japa affirmation from Mahatma's Japa Affirmations book before you start your japa. Right, Bhakta Moses? It works, right? Did it transform your japa? Yeah? Did it transform yours, Atmatava? Yeah? Ekachakra? Okay, so just keep going with it, Bubba. But one of the things that, you know, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Harinam Chintamani gives one remedy for pramada of utsaha, super enthusiasm. Knowing, if you got this, Sambandha Gyan, you know, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I'm His servant. The material energy can be utilized in Krishna's service. If I don't utilize it in Krishna's service, it's going to beat me over the head, force me into like incredible disturbances. So then, just give it everything you got. When I was a new devotee, I'd been a devotee about 1.5 years. I was on a traveling Sankirtan party. And I was initiated. I don't think I'd had second initiation yet. And Ramapad Das Brahmachari was the temple president of the New York temple. And that temple at that time had 250 devotees in it. Whew. What an amazing temple it was. 11-story building in Midtown Manhattan. And when we go out on Harinam, 250 devotees down Broadway. People were blown away. They just couldn't believe it. And we'd have these dramas in front of, you know, the ticket counters of these Broadway shows, and people just, wow. I mean, I met people 15, 20 years later when I was distributing books. It's, I saw you guys way back in 1978, you know. Down Hari, you know, when you were chanting Hare Krishna, you know, and a lot of the people would start dancing along. It was like amazing. And we had these incredible kirtaniyas. So, but anyway, Ramapad Swami came out to join the party. We had 4 saffron-colored vans, naturally, because we're all brahmacharis. We had a saffron-colored motorhome, which is a big home on wheels with a kitchen, and we drive it, and we'd have our morning program in there. And Ramapad Swami came. We did Mangal Arati, Guru Puja. We had Bhagavatam class. And in the Bhagavatam class, he was speaking from the second chapter, the first canto, and he brought up the point he brought up the importance of chanting Hare Krishna. And he said that he noticed during the japa period some symptoms of not such good japa, like radar japa, looking at the cook, cooking the breakfast because I'm really hungry, or dive bomber japa, nodding out. We had a few dive bombers during the class here today, but you're awake now, okay? That's important. And, so anyway, I realized, and, he went on in some more details about what not to do during japa and how to come to a better stage. He was emphasizing utsaha. So the next morning, after really thinking about, oh God, I got problems. I got to do something about this. So the next morning, got up at 2, as usual, had 1 4-liter bottle of water and another 4-liter bottle of water. And this is the way we would do it on traveling sacred time. We'd take 1 4-liter bottle, pour it on our head, soap up, and the other 4-liter bottle, rinse off with. Okay? It was summertime, but we would do this in the middle of winter too. You know, in Northern America when it's below 0. I mean, 10 below Celsius 0. So that next morning, I was chanting japa so loud that if Panchatattva, Ekachakra, if you were standing over in front of the brahmacharya ashram, you would be able to hear me, you know, even from inside, you know, this room. And, you know, super intense. You know, and what happened when I actually got out on book distribution? I think it was like 3 times what I would normally do, and collected 3 times the amount of Lakshmi. Every single person I would meet was the best person I'd meet in a month, or 2 or 3 weeks. You know, it was incredible. Guess what I did the next morning? Same thing. Naturally, you know. I discovered a formula. You know, just utsaha. So it works. So try it. Anything else? I think I'm fearing the danda on my head, you know, so maybe we should end now. 9:05, I'm in big trouble. Hare Krishna, glories to Prabhupada.